I thought I'd get down the allotment nice and early this morning. Now the sun hasn't quite come up now, it's just behind that fence of trees at the back there. So once that comes up, hopefully it'll get a little bit warmer because it's very, very cold this morning. Now the weather hasn't been very good. It's been very cold, and also there's been a lot of rain, which is really good for the allotment because it's growing really well. It's just not very good to garden in, and it's not very good to film in. So I do apologise for the late video, but it's just been a little bit hard to get out and do some filming. But there is plenty to do, hence the early start. I need to harvest my Borlotti beans. They are ready for harvesting, and I'm going to store them away for winter. I also need to harvest my French beans because there are so many there. I'm also going to sow some more turnip seeds because they went terribly wrong. And I'm also going to sow some Kohlrabi seeds. Now I'm going to pick the first flowers this year from plot 15C. And I also need to sort the strawberry bed cages out because there are a lot of runners on there. So I'll show you all what to do with the runners. And of course there's always the weeding to do. So I've just popped the kettle on, so I'll have a cup of tea before I get started. Now the Borlotti beans are ready to harvest. I specifically decided to grow these because I wanted to dry them out and store them for winter. Now you can eat Borlotti beans when they're younger. You would just treat them like you would runner beans and eat them in the same way. However, I wanted to use the beans and dry them out. Now these ones are ready. They are completely red and with streaks of cream on them. The younger ones are still a little bit green, so I'm going to wait and let them ones bulk up a little bit before I pick them. So I will pick all the ones that are ready. Now some people leave the pods on these stems to completely dry out, but I've heard stories about the beans falling out of the pods and onto the floor, and of course the mice get them. So I've decided to pick them and to store them in the shed to let them completely dry out. Now the pods need to go brown and crispy, and the beans need to be very hard. Now if you bite into a bean and you still leave teeth marks, then they're not completely dry. It will take a few months for the beans to dry out yet. But once they do, you can store them in a little airtight jar in the kitchen and then just add them to stews and casseroles, which just sounds perfect. Now I've never tried Borlotti beans before, but I do like all the beans really. I like broad beans and runner beans and French beans, so hopefully I like Borlotti beans. Another great reason to pick the beans now rather than leaving them on the stem to dry out is to allow the plant to give all the new beans which are forming, and there's quite a few little beans forming at the top. It will allow all the nutrients and all the focus to go into the new growth, and hopefully that means that there will be a lot more Borlotti beans for me to eat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in the shed in a basket just to let them dry out completely, and then when the pods start to go brown and crispy, I will take the beans out and let them continue drying, and then hopefully in a few months' time I'll be able to taste them. pop some more turnips in along this space here. Now I know I did it in the last video, but it did go terribly wrong. Now really I put them in at the wrong time, because I put them in just before I went on holiday, and they came up, which was great, but unfortunately no one was here to water them, so they dried up in the sun. So really I shouldn't have put them in before I went on holiday. I should have done it after, when I could water them. So that was a big mistake on my part. But there's plenty of seeds, so I've just popped some more in and that's fine. Now I did originally put beetroot here. That didn't come up at all. So I decided to grow something else. Now I went to the Lost Gardens of Heligan while I was on holiday, and they had some really pretty seed packets. But I found one called Kohlrabi, and you can sow it in August, which is just perfect for one of those fill-in crops, especially now when you're starting to harvest things and pull up plants. So it's great just to fill in those empty spaces. Now kohlrabi is part of the cabbage family, the brassica family, so ideally you can put it in the cabbage bed, but there's space here, so I'm going to put it here. And what I'll do is I'll put a net over it just to protect it from the cabbage whitefly. Now it's very similar to turnip. You can eat the stem base. I've never tried it before, I've never grown it before, so it's a little bit of experiment really. But I thought I'd give it a go. It's nice to try new things. Now you need to space the seeds 9 inches apart, so that you don't need to thin them out. Now the packet says that you can sow them in a seed bed and then transplant them later on, or you can sow them directly where you want them to stay 9 inches apart. So I'm going to do that, just because I've got the space here ready. Now all I'm going to do, to save me digging a whole trench out, I'm just going to use my finger and put it to about 2 centimeters deep, and then just pop a seed in 9 inches apart. You could put 2 seeds in, just in case one of them doesn't germinate. It'd be really interesting to see what these come out like. This is a purple variety called Purple Vienna. So I managed to fit about 8 seeds in there. And there's still plenty of seeds left in the packet, so if they don't appear then I'll just try again. But I'm going to make sure that I look after these ones and water them every day. If it doesn't rain, but it probably will rain. So that's all in. Now I'll give them a quick little water, but I'll just show you my dwarf French beans quickly because they're growing really well. Now this is the Purple Queen variety, and it's a dwarf variety. Now a few of them didn't pop up. You can tell the difference between the earlier ones and the later ones. I actually sowed these ones at home in some root trainers. and just filled in the spaces just so I can get as much bean as possible from that space. But they're growing really well, so hopefully I'll get a lot of nice purple beans from here. And it's great because it means I'll get them a little later on in the year, so there's not a big glut of purple beans and French beans, because there are a lot of French beans on that plant. So I'm just going to pick them now. Haven't picked the French beans in a while, and they've gone a little bit crazy, so I need to go on a big picking spree, because obviously if you stop picking them, then the beans will go to seed, and of course the plants will think that they've done their job, so they won't produce any more beans. So it's really best to keep on top of the picking. Now, quite a few of these are a little bit too big to eat, so what I'm going to do with the slightly bigger ones is I'm going to make some French bean and courgette chutney. There are quite a few that are small enough to eat, just as they are, so I'll make 2 separate piles, one's where I can eat now, and then one to make the chutney with. Now there's a lot of picking to do, but hopefully there'll be some yummy chutney at the end. Now the strawberry season ended quite a while ago, so I haven't really done anything to these strawberry beds. I've just let them go really. So the plants are getting a little bit big, and there's a few weeds in here, so what I'll do today is I will sort the runners out, and then I will weed this area, and then hopefully that can be left alone all through autumn and winter. I might have to cut some of the leaves back, but that can just be left, it'll be fine. Now onto the runners. Now the strawberry plants will produce these every year. What I've done in previous years is I bought a set of strawberry plants, my very first strawberry plants, 2 years ago, and then from those plants I used the runners which they produced, and I created more strawberry plants just to save you buying more. And obviously strawberry plants need to be replaced every 2 to 3 years just so you can get the best strawberries out of them. Now this bed here is 2 years old. These are my first strawberry plants, and then this bed here is full of the runners from these plants. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the runners off this year, and then next year I will plant them up, just because these plants will be 3 years old then, and they would have had their best strawberries by then. So today I will be cutting the runners off. Now you just simply take the runners and cut them off near to the strawberry plant, and that's your runner. Now this one actually has 2 on it, and you can see the slightly bigger one here is producing some roots. Now if you want to keep the runners and you want to create more strawberry plants, don't cut the runners off. You leave the runners on the plant, and then you get a pot with some compost in it, and you just pop the runner with the roots on into the pot, and then that will root itself down and it will create a strawberry plant. Once it's well established, you can cut the runner off and then move the pot to a different place. But they need to establish before you cut them off of the original strawberry plant. But today I'll be cutting them off just because I don't need them, and they will be self-rooting themselves into the strawberry bed. So I'm going to cut them off just to stop them doing that. Now I've done this before already this year, but they just keep on coming and coming. So like I said, next year I will be using the runners to create more strawberry plants, but this year they are just not needed. So today I am cutting the first flowers which I've ever cut from plot 15C, which is a shame because there's not really many flowers to cut. Obviously last year I didn't have my allotment, so I grew some flowers on my dad's allotment, and there were just absolutely loads to pick. There were dahlias and gladioli, cosmos, gypsophila, there were loads of sweet peas as well. So it was nice just to come up the allotment and pick them and just fill the house with these beautiful homegrown flowers, and it smelt really nice as well. So it's a shame that there's not many to pick this year, but there's a few. There's some zinnias which are just really beautiful. There's quite a few of them here actually. I'll definitely be growing them again next year just because they're really, really nice. I got the seed from Sarah Raven and it's called a Sprite Mix. And there's pinks and oranges and yellows, and they're just really nice and bright, so they're hopefully brighten up the house. Now there's also some scabious which have just bloomed. They're really, really lovely. There's a few cosmos, there's a few calendula, there's also some verbena. Now that's nearly had its day, but it still looks really pretty, so I'm going to take some of that home as well just to fill a vase up. But that's about it for the flowers. So hopefully I will manage to fill one vase full, and then next year there are some big plans for a cut flower patch, so I'll tell you about that later. So I managed to pick a handful of flowers. I'm quite pleased with them. Looks very wild. Now I've also left a few for the bees just to keep them happy because they're still buzzing around. So I'll take them home and put them in a vase. But I just want to tell you quickly about my plans for next year on the allotment just before I finish the video. Now I have 3 vegetable beds on my plot. Now because my dad's got a new allotment and it's a lot bigger, he's able to grow a lot more vegetables, and we've come to the conclusion that we are growing a little bit too much really. Over the past week we've had a massive glut of French beans because he's growing French beans and I'm growing French beans. They've all come at once. We didn't plan the succession very well, so they've all come at once. And we just can't keep on top of them at all. So we've decided that I don't need to grow as much vegetables. And the plan is to have the bean bed, just dedicate that completely to cut flowers, which I've always wanted to do because I just love flowers. And obviously the wildflower patch just isn't big enough. There wasn't enough room to plant flowers like dahlias and flowers like that, so it would be nice to have a whole patch just dedicated to flowers, and of course it will keep the bees happy as well. There's not enough allotments on this site which grow flowers, so it will look nice as well. And I do urge people just to put flowers on their allotment just to keep the bees happy because they are declining so dramatically. We need to save the bees, so if you've got room, just pop some flowers in, and obviously your plants will benefit from it as well. So that's the plan for the bean bed, which leaves the two vegetable beds, which are the brassica and the root bed. Now I will have to split them into 3 smaller beds just so I can rotate them. So they'll be smaller, but it will be fine because there will be plenty of vegetables. And that's the plan for next year. Now I'm really excited to start making up a little crop plan. Obviously I need to pick the flowers as well, so that will take a little bit of time. I just can't wait. I'm really excited to be able to grow some flowers, and it hopefully will look really nice as well. So that's it. That's the plan for more flowers. Now that's it for this video. So I will go home and I'll put these in a vase, but then I'll probably come back up again because I need to stay on top of the weeding. The weeds just keep popping up and they are just absolutely loving all this rain that we are having. So I need to stay on top of the weeds. And obviously you guys don't want to see me weeding because it's just boring. So I will leave the video there. So thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.